You are 11 years old when a black car passes your school gate and makes every other car on the street look like it's trying too hard. You don't know the make, you don't know the model. You know it has a silver star on the bonnet and moves through Manchester traffic the way water moves around a stone, just unbothered by the same rules that inconvenience everything else. You stand at the gate for a moment after it disappears, which is not something you normally do. That evening, you try to describe it to your father the way an 11-year-old describes something he doesn't have the vocabulary for yet. You tell him it was black and long and it moved like it owned the road. Your father looks up from his dinner and asks if it had a star on the front. You say yes. He says that it was a Mercedes. You repeat the word under your breath twice so it doesn't leave. You ask him if your family can get one. He glances at the Volkswagen Passat parked outside the window, the one with the passenger window that sticks, and he smiles in the way that fathers smile when the answer is no, but they love you too much to just say no. He says those cars cost more than he earns in 3 years. You do the math badly and arrive at an enormous number regardless. You ask him when you will ever be able to own one. He thinks about it genuinely, which you remember because he could have just said never and closed the conversation. He says when you earn your own money and save long enough, anything is buyable. It is the most useful thing he ever tells you. You repeat the word Mercedes one more time before you sleep. For the next 15 years, that word becomes a research project that nobody assigned you. At 13, you learn the difference between the C-Class, the E-Class, and the S-Class, and you understand immediately that the S-Class is the one because the S-Class is the one they built for people who stopped needing to prove anything. At 16, you learn that Obsidian Black Metallic is a paint option that costs extra and looks like the car was dipped in something that absorbed all available light. At 19, you spend a free period configuring an S-Class on the Mercedes website down to the stitching color on the seats, arriving at a total that makes your university maintenance loan feel like a rounding error. You screenshot it and save it to a folder you don't show anyone. Today, you are 26 years old, and you are an assistant manager at a freight logistics company in Birmingham, earning a salary that your father would have considered extraordinary and that you have treated for 3 years as a construction material with one specific project in mind. Jack Barclay on Berkeley Square has carpet thick enough that your footsteps disappear, which you suspect is intentional because everything in this building is intentional. You are wearing the charcoal suit your mother said made you look like you'd already got the job. You have worn it twice in 3 years. Today is the third time David meets you at the door, not the reception desk, the door. He is wearing a tie that costs more than your first month's salary at Hartley and Cross, and he shakes your hand like he's been expecting you specifically, which, in a way he has been since you called on Wednesday. He doesn't ask what you're looking for. You told him on the phone, and men like David file that information and retrieve it without making a performance of having filed it. He walks you through to a consultation room off the main floor. There is an LCD screen on the wall, a table with 2 chairs, and a small ceramic cup of coffee that appeared without you asking for it. David pulls up the configurator and your spec is already loaded. Obsidian, Black Metallic, S500, Sienna Brown, Napa Leather, Burmester, high-end 3D surround sound, rear executive seating package, MBUX, hyperscreen, stretching the full width of the dashboard. He turns the screen toward you and asks if you want to make any changes. You look at the configuration you first saved as a screenshot at 19 years old and say no. David explains the timeline without being asked. Current production slot puts delivery at 11 weeks from order confirmation. The car is built in Sindelfingen, the Mercedes factory in Baden-Württemberg that has been producing S-Classes since 1954 and treats each one with the specific seriousness of an institution that has never once considered making anything cheaper. Your car will be assembled, painted, trimmed, and tested over approximately 3 weeks before being transported to the UK through a logistics chain that you understand better than David does, though you don't mention this. You sign the order confirmation on a Saturday morning and transfer the full payment before you leave the building. David shakes your hand again at the door. He says the car will be worth the wait. You already know this, so you just nod. The 11 weeks are not difficult. You have been waiting 15 years for a car to exist in your life, and 11 weeks is a footnote on that timeline. You go to work. You manage freight. You drive the Avensis. You check your email on Thursday evenings, the way you have checked it every Thursday evening since the order was placed. Not compulsively, just attentively, the way you monitor a shipment you care about. The email arrives on a Tuesday. Your car is ready for collection on Saturday. You read it twice, close your laptop, and finish the rest of your working day without telling anyone. Saturday morning, you take the train to London because you are not arriving at Jack Barkley in a 2008 Toyota Avensis with a worn patch on the steering wheel. David brings the car around from the handover bay, and the first thing you notice is that the photographs were accurate and also completely insufficient. Obsidian, black metallic, in direct morning light does something that no configurator screenshot has ever conveyed. It doesn't reflect light the way ordinary black paint reflects light. It absorbs most of it and returns the rest slowly, like the car is deciding what to give back. You sit in the driver's seat and the seat moves. Not because you touched anything. The S-Class has a memory function that stores the preferred position of previous drivers and adjusts automatically for new ones, reading your height and weight distribution through sensors in the cushion and finding your position within 8 seconds of you sitting down. You turn the music on, and the sound fills the cabin like the car was built around the acoustics and the seats came second. The dashboard is one continuous screen from door to door, and everything the car does lives behind it. Climate, navigation, massage, lighting. Responding before you fully commit to touching it. You hit a speed bump on Piccadilly and check your mirrors to confirm it actually happened. On the A40, you press the accelerator properly for the first time. The car doesn't speed up, it relocates. Nobody tells you about the second week. The first week you wash it yourself, by hand on a Sunday morning, because you are not ready to trust a machine with something you saved 3 years to own. You use the microfiber cloth your mother gave you as a joke gift at Christmas, and you work from the roof down the way the detailing forums say you should. The second week, a stone chip appears on the front bumper. You don't know which road. You don't know which moment. It is simply there on Tuesday morning, a pale gray dot the size of a match head on a bumper that costs £840 to replace through Mercedes-Benz Birmingham. You book it in for a paint touch-up at a body shop in Digbeth that 3 forums agree is the only place worth trusting with Obsidian black metallic. The repair costs £220. You pay it without discussing it with anyone because there is nobody to discuss it with, and because you already knew, somewhere underneath the dream, that this car was going to cost you in ways the sticker price never mentioned. The S500's official fuel economy is 32.8 miles per gallon. In real Birmingham traffic in February, with the seat heating running and the Burmester doing its work, you are getting 24. The 76-liter tank costs £112 to fill at current pump prices, and you fill it every 11 days, which is a number you know because you checked. You are spending just over £300 a month on fuel alone, which is what you spent on food before you started paying attention to what you spent on food. The annual service at the Mercedes-Benz dealership on Hagley Road is £960 for the A service and $1,400 for the B service. The extended warranty you added at purchase costs £61 a month and covers parts, but not wear items and not the things that tend to actually go wrong, which you discover when the rear air suspension warning light appears at 8 months and 11,000 miles, and the fault is classified as a sensor issue rather than a mechanical failure, which puts it outside the warranty by a definition that the service advisor explains with the specific patience of someone who has explained it many times before. The sensor costs £340 fitted. Here is what nobody who has never owned one tells you about the MBUX system. It is extraordinary, and it requires 40 hours of your life before it stops surprising you with things you didn't ask it to do. The touchscreen controls the climate, the massage, the ambient lighting, the camera system, the navigation, the driving modes, and approximately 60 other functions you will discover accidentally over the first 3 months. The steering wheel controls are touch-sensitive rather than physical buttons, which means you change the volume every time you adjust your grip on a motorway, which happens more than you would expect. The air suspension occasionally decides the road surface requires a different response than the road surface you are actually on, and the car firms up for a quarter mile on a smooth stretch of the M42 for reasons the MBUX logs, but doesn't explain in plain English. You learn to ignore it. You learn to ignore several things that a car costing this much probably shouldn't require you to ignore, And then you get on a clear motorway on a Thursday evening when the traffic clears after junction 4, and you press the accelerator the way the car was built to be pressed, and the S500 does what 503 brake horsepower does when it has been properly engineered rather than simply dropped into a chassis. The 9-speed gearbox finds the right ratio before you consciously decide you need it. The air suspension flattens the road. The cabin stays quiet at speeds that would turn any other car into a wind tunnel experiment. You sit in sienna brown leather with the Burmester filling the air around you and the Birmingham skyline shrinking in the mirror, and you think about an 11-year-old standing at a school gate watching a car disappear around a corner. The stone chip is still there on the bumper. You canceled the body shop appointment twice because you kept finding better uses for 220 pounds, and because, if you are being honest, you have stopped noticing it the way you stop noticing anything that becomes part of the permanent landscape of your life. Your father calls on a Sunday. He asks how the car's going. You tell him it's good. He asks if it was worth it. You look at it parked outside your flat in the early morning light, and you think about the Avensis, which you sold to a man in Solihull for 2,800 pounds 3 months ago, and you think about the savings account that now has a balance of 47 pounds and no nickname because it no longer needs one. You tell him yes. He says good. Neither of you mentions the condition. It was stated once, 15 years ago, and it has been met. And some things don't need to be said twice. This story is fiction, but the math it describes is real. The savings, the stone chips, the sensor warnings, the Sunday morning with the microfiber cloth. It's a story about what it actually costs to close the gap between who you are and who you decided to be at 11 years old. If it landed, drop a comment. More is coming. Subscribe.